Ladies and gentlemen, what if I told you that the difference between who you are today and the person who commands a room, seizes opportunities, and changes lives isn't about luck, timing, or even innate talent? It's about your daily choices. It's about those small, consistent improvements and subtle shifts that rewire how you see yourself and how the world sees you. Let's not strive for perfection. Let's simply aim to be better than yesterday. I'm going to share 10 daily improvements that can be distilled into 5 life-changing principles. Practice these, and you won't just build confidence, you'll become unstoppable. Mastering your morning isn't just about controlling a time slot on the clock. It's about mastering your focus, your direction, and eventually, your entire life. Most people think their day begins when their alarm goes off, but that's where they're already losing. The truth is, your day doesn't start at 9 a.m. It doesn't start when you grab your phone or respond to emails. It starts the night before. It begins with intention. It starts with a promise to yourself that your life matters enough to begin. With purpose, not panic. Confidence isn't built in meetings, social media posts, or grand moments. It's built in silence, in those unseen, unshared minutes when no one is watching and there's nothing to prove. That's where strength is born, not loud strength, the kind that flexes for the world, but the quiet kind, the type that whispers, "I know who I am," even when the world tries to convince you otherwise. That's why waking up just 30 minutes earlier can change everything, not because it gives you more time to hustle, but because it gives you space to return to yourself, not to grind, but to ground. Imagine beginning each day with intention instead of interruption. Imagine opening your eyes and feeling calm, not chaotic. That's not a dream. That's a decision. Use that time for 3 simple but powerful practices. First, clarity. Before the demands of the day flood in, journal your thoughts. Just let them spill. Write down one thing you're grateful for, no matter how small: a warm bed, a message from a friend, a second chance. Gratitude isn't a mood, it's a muscle. And when you flex it each morning, your perspective shifts. You stop bracing for problems and start noticing possibilities. That small act of appreciation is an anchor. It keeps you from drifting into negativity. Then comes stillness, not scrolling, not scheduling, just 5 minutes of breathing. 5 minutes to sit with yourself. Because here's the thing, in a loud world, stillness is a superpower. Calm minds don't just survive chaos, they lead through it. When you breathe with intention, you're training your nervous system to respond instead of react. You're teaching your mind that not every fire needs to be fought. Some just need to be observed until they burn out. In those few quiet minutes, you're not wasting time, you're reclaiming it. And then, move. Not for Instagram, not for calories. Move to wake up your body and shake off the fog of sleep. Walk, stretch, do a few jumping jacks if you feel like it. It doesn't matter what it looks like. What matters is that your body knows we're alive. We're in this together. Physical movement isn't about looking good. It's about feeling ready. It's about aligning your body with your mind and saying, "Let's go." Don't obsess over a perfect morning routine. That's where many people get stuck. They think they need an elaborate checklist to qualify as disciplined. You don't. What you need is a ritual, a sacred rhythm that reminds you every single morning that you are in control, not of everything, but of how you start and how you show up. That small window of time, done consistently, becomes a foundation. It becomes proof. Proof that you can keep your word to yourself. Proof that you can trust yourself. And that's where confidence comes from, not from hype, but from harmony. The Navy SEALs have a saying that echoes deeply here: under pressure, we don't rise to the occasion, we fall to the level of our training. That truth doesn't only apply to warfare, it applies to life, to stress, to opportunity, to heartbreak, to ambition. When the pressure is on, when the day blindsides you with problems, or the meeting goes wrong, or the rejection hits harder than expected, you won't suddenly become your best self. You'll become whatever you've rehearsed in the quiet. Train your mornings, and you'll train your mind. You'll train your resilience, and eventually, you'll train your confidence to no longer depend on outcomes because it will be rooted in action daily. Disciplined, unseen action. People talk about owning the day as if it's some grand strategy. But it's not a strategy, it's a choice, and it starts small. It starts with how you greet the day before the world greets you. It starts with choosing presence over panic, purpose over pressure. It starts with honoring that you are worth the time it takes to ground yourself before giving yourself away. If you want to lead others, lead yourself first. If you want respect, show up when no one's watching. If you want strength, build it in silence. That 30 minutes in the morning isn't a luxury, it's a necessity, because the world will test you. It will distract you. It will challenge your identity. But if you've built a rhythm of returning to yourself each morning, you'll have something stronger than answers. You'll have alignment. And alignment is where greatness begins. So tomorrow morning, don't just wake up, rise. Don't just roll out of bed, rise. Be there for yourself before you're there for anyone else. Clarity, stillness, movement. It sounds simple, but the most powerful rituals usually are, not because they make you more productive, but because they make you more present. You don't need more hours in your day. You need more ownership. And it starts right there, in the silence of your own morning. Train it, trust it, and you will rise again and again. Not because life gets easier, but because you've made yourself stronger. Every morning, before the world can get its hands on you, before notifications start buzzing and emails start flooding in, you stand in front of a mirror. That reflection staring back at you is more than skin, more than bone, more than hair you wish behaved a little better. That reflection is you, the only you there will ever be. And yet, for some reason, we treat it like a battlefield. We speak to it with criticism sharper than any enemy could deliver. We dissect it. We find flaws. We compare it. We diminish it. But the truth is this: the way we speak to ourselves is the script for our identity. You don't become confident because you achieve something. Confidence isn't a trophy you win after success. It's not granted by applause or validated by a salary figure or social media followers. Confidence is forged in identity. It is born in the quiet belief that you are enough before you prove it to anyone else. And that belief is shaped by language, the words you choose, especially when no one else is listening. Build the framework for who you believe you are becoming. Now, imagine this. You walk up to your best friend. They've had a hard day. They've tried, failed, tried again. You look them in the eyes and say, "You're falling behind. You're not enough. You'll never be like them." Sounds cruel, doesn't it? You'd never say it because you care, because you know they're worthy of compassion. And yet, we look into the mirror and say those same words to ourselves every day, often without even realizing it. Our inner dialogue is not background noise. It is direction. It becomes identity. And the dangerous part is that repetition works both ways. The more you repeat negative narratives, "I'm not good enough. I always mess up. I'm not like them," the deeper those beliefs go. They become the quiet truths you live by, even when they're not true. But here's the beauty. You can rewrite the story, not by shouting affirmations into the void, but by learning to speak to yourself the way someone who loves you would. Start with something small. One sentence, one truth, out loud. I show up. Say it every morning. Let your voice carry the weight of that truth. Because showing up is no small feat. It's the foundation of everything. And saying it out loud matters. There's something powerful about hearing your own voice speak kindness into your life. It cuts through the noise. It makes it real. Then build on it. I solve problems. Not because you've solved them all already, but because you are becoming someone who finds a way. You aren't stuck. You are capable. You are evolving. And finally, say this: I am becoming someone I admire, not someone the world admires, not someone who fits the mold, but someone you admire. Because at the end of the day, you live with yourself. You walk with yourself. You sleep and rise with your own thoughts. And peace doesn't come from perfection. It comes from alignment, from being proud of who you are becoming. Even when no one is watching, most people think confidence is loud. They think it's in the spotlight, in the success. But confidence is quiet. It's in the decision to be kind to yourself when no one else is around. It's in the courage to speak words of life when your past screams words of failure. It's in choosing not to echo the world's criticism, but to become the one voice in your life that calls you forward. Try this for the next 30 days. When you look in the mirror, don't look for flaws. Look for evidence of strength. Speak it. Don't just think it. Let it be awkward. Let it be new. Let it be strange. Because the first time you do something different, it always feels uncomfortable. But discomfort isn't danger, it's growth. And if you stay in that discomfort long enough, you'll find something powerful on the other side. You'll find that the way you treat yourself sets the tone for how others treat you. You'll find that the more grace you offer yourself, the more risks you're willing to take. Because people who are kind to themselves don't fear failure as much. They know their worth isn't on the line. They don't crumble under criticism because they have a steady voice inside that already told them they matter. And when you build that voice, when you nurture it daily, something amazing happens. You stop needing external validation. You stop performing and start living. You stop chasing and start growing. You stop pretending and start becoming. There's a reason most people never try this. It's easier to be mean to ourselves. It's familiar. It feels like accountability. But there's a difference between holding yourself to a standard and beating yourself into shame. Growth doesn't come from shame. It comes from belief. From the belief that you are worthy of becoming better. And belief, like confidence, is cultivated with words. So say the words. Even if your voice trembles, even if you don't fully believe them yet, speak them until they feel like yours, until they echo louder than your doubts, until they carry you through hard days. Speak to yourself like someone worth loving. Because you are, and not just because of what you've done, but because of who you are and who you're becoming. Your mirror doesn't need to be a battleground. It can be a place of alignment, a place of truth, a place of peace. It can be the starting point of your power, not the reminder of your flaws. And all it takes is a choice to speak kindly, a choice to rewrite the story, a choice to become, not just to appear. Because in the end, you don't become who you wanted to be. You become who you believe you are. And belief begins with the words you say when no one else is listening. Speak wisely. Speak kindly. Speak truth. The mirror is waiting. So is your future. Rejection is one of the most painful yet powerful teachers we will ever encounter. Most of us spend our lives trying to avoid it, dodging difficult conversations, holding back ideas, staying silent when we want to speak up. We convince ourselves that rejection is something to fear, something to run from, something that means we're not good enough. But what if the opposite were true? What if rejection was the very thing that could make us stronger, braver, more alive? We've been conditioned to associate success with approval, with claps, with nods, with people saying yes. But success isn't built in the moments when everyone agrees with you. It's built in the moments when they don't, when they say no, when they ignore you, when they tell you you're not ready, not right, not enough. That's where greatness is forged, not in the spotlight, but in the shadows. When no one's watching and you still choose to keep going. We learn to walk by falling down. We learn to speak by fumbling words, and we grow into our boldest selves not by being accepted, but by being rejected and trying again anyway. Every day we are given the opportunity to test our courage, to put something out into the world that might not be received the way we want, to ask for something without knowing the answer, to show our face, our voice, our work, even when there's a risk it won't land. And it's in these moments of uncertainty that real confidence is born. Confidence isn't the absence of fear. It's not bravado. It's not pretending to be fearless. It's knowing the fear is there and acting anyway. It's the quiet, unshakable belief that no matter what happens, you will be okay. That even if you fall, you can stand again. That rejection doesn't define your worth. It reveals it. Let me tell you a story about someone who took this to heart, in a way most people never would. A man named Jia Zhang decided to face his fear of rejection head-on, but not just once. He committed to being rejected every single day for 100 days on purpose, deliberately. He asked strangers for ridiculous things, to borrow $100, to plant flowers in their backyard, to give him free donuts shaped like Olympic rings. He knew the answer would probably be no, but he asked anyway. At first, it was awkward, painful, embarrassing. But something amazing happened. The more he got rejected, the less it hurt, the less he feared it. Rejection lost its power over him. He realized that a no wasn't a reflection of his value. It was just data, feedback, and outcome. And once you take rejection off the pedestal, Once you stop treating it like a verdict on your worth, it becomes just another step forward. What Gia discovered is what we all need to learn. Rejection is not a wall. It's a door, and every time we knock, we gain something: courage, clarity, strength. We train the muscle of resilience, and over time, that muscle becomes unbreakable. You don't need to seek out 100 rejections to get there. One per day is enough. Just one moment every day where you risk hearing no. One moment where you stretch beyond what's comfortable, where you say, "Here I am," and let the chips fall. Send the email, post the video, make the call. Ask for the thing that makes your hands sweat and your heart race. The goal isn't to win, it's to show up. Because every time you do, you send a message to yourself: I am brave, I am worthy, I can handle whatever comes. And the more often you face rejection, the more you realize that most of the time, the fear you felt was never about the outcome. It was about the story you were telling yourself, the story that said, "If they say no, I'm not good enough." But that story is a lie. You are not defined by who says yes to you. You are defined by your willingness to keep going when they say no. Some of the most successful people in the world got there not because they avoided rejection, but because they embraced it. They learned from it. They were students of it. Every no taught them something they couldn't have learned from a yes. Thomas Edison was told thousands of times that his ideas were impossible. Oprah Winfrey was told she wasn't fit for television. J.K. Rowling was rejected by 12 publishers before someone finally said yes. These aren't stories of success despite rejection. They are stories of success because of it. Rejection, when welcomed, becomes the soil in which our confidence grows. And the amazing thing is, once you stop fearing rejection, you become magnetic. People are drawn to those who dare, who are bold enough to risk failure in pursuit of something meaningful. That kind of courage is contagious. So today, and every day, choose one moment to be uncomfortable, one moment to lean into the possibility of rejection. Not because you wanted to fail, but because you wanted to grow. And if you do hear no, celebrate it. It means you showed up. It means you stepped into the arena. It means you're becoming the kind of person who doesn't flinch at discomfort, but welcomes it as the cost of a meaningful life. Rejection is not something to recover from. It's something to learn from, something to use, something to keep in your back pocket as a reminder that you are not fragile. You are not made of glass. You are capable of taking hits and rising stronger. So don't chase applause. Chase truth. Chase impact. Chase the version of yourself that is built not on acceptance, but on endurance. Every rejection is a gift if you let it be. And every time you say yes to risking that rejection, you say yes to becoming more fully, powerfully, unapologetically you. We've been conditioned to chase outcomes, to obsess over metrics, trophies, applause, the performance, the spotlight. It's intoxicating. But over time, even the loudest cheers begin to fade. What once felt like triumph becomes routine. What once brought joy begins to feel like pressure. When performance is the only thing that matters, even victory can feel hollow, because no amount of success can fill the void left by a lack of meaning. There's a reason people at the top of their game, Olympians, CEOs, best-selling authors, sometimes walk away. It's not because they stop being good at what they do. It's because somewhere along the way they forgot why they started. They got tangled in expectations and lost the thread of purpose. And without purpose, even excellence becomes exhausting. Performance is about proving. Purpose is about contributing. One feeds the ego, the other feeds the soul. When we're young, we dream big, not for recognition, but because we want to change the world. We want to help, to matter, to make things better. A kid doesn't draw a picture hoping for likes. They draw because it brings them joy. A teenager doesn't stand up for a friend because it looks good on a college application. They do it because it feels right. We start with heart, but somewhere between ambition and adulthood, we begin to measure everything. We're taught to ask, "How am I doing?" instead of, "Who am I helping?" And that shift, subtle at first, changes everything. Imagine waking up every day and asking not, "How can I win?" but "Who can I serve?" Not, "What do I get?" but "What do I give?" That mindset doesn't just lead to better work, it leads to a better life. Because when you're connected to purpose, You become unstoppable. Think about someone you admire. A teacher who changed your life. A nurse who stayed late even when they didn't have to. A coach who saw your potential before you did. Were they driven by accolades, or were they driven by impact? Did they act out of obligation or out of care? People who make a lasting difference rarely do so for applause. They do it because they know who they're helping. Sometimes that person is someone they've never met, a child in the future, who will grow up in a better world because of what they built. Sometimes it's someone close, a sibling, a friend, a parent. And sometimes it's themselves, not the self, in the mirror today, but the younger version who once felt small, afraid, or invisible. When you work for your younger self, you stop seeking validation. You become the person you once needed. You show up not to prove others wrong, but to show someone like you that it's possible. And when you do that, when your work becomes a bridge for others, it transforms from a performance into a legacy. That's what purpose does. It shifts the focus from impressing to impacting. It reminds you that you're not here to shine for a moment. You're here to light the way for others. Elite athletes know this. The most successful ones talk about their families, their hometowns, their communities. They talk about playing for something bigger than themselves. The gold medal is great, but the meaning is in what it represents: sacrifice, resilience, unity. That's why they endure grueling training, brutal losses, and public pressure. Not for the podium, but for the people. Leaders know this. The ones we remember aren't the loudest or the richest. They're the ones who lift others, who use their voice for those who don't have one, who create opportunities not for profit, but for progress. They don't chase success. They build it with others in mind. Creators know this. The best storytellers don't write to impress. They write to connect. They paint what they've lived, speak what they felt, and because they dare to be honest, their work touches hearts. It lasts. But none of this happens by accident. Purpose is a choice, a daily decision to anchor your work in meaning. It's easy to perform. It's harder to persist because performance relies on immediate results: applause, likes, money. Purpose requires patience. It often doesn't shout, it whispers, but its impact runs deeper and lasts longer. So, how do we get back to purpose? We start by asking better questions. Not, am I doing enough? But, am I doing what matters? Not, do they approve? But, does this align with who I am? And most importantly, who am I helping? That question is a compass. It realigns us when we're lost. It grounds us when we're overwhelmed. It reminds us that the work isn't just about us, it's about the lives we touch, the people we uplift, the hope we create. When you live with that kind of clarity, confidence isn't something you fake. It's something you become, because you're no longer pretending to be someone else. You're not acting out of fear or competition. You're rooted, centered, sure. And here's the beautiful part. When you contribute instead of perform, people feel it. They don't just see your success. They feel your sincerity. They're drawn to your authenticity, your intention, your heart. You stop attracting attention and start inspiring action. You stop chasing the stage and start changing lives. In a world that rewards image, choose integrity. In a culture obsessed with results, choose reason. In moments when you're tempted to quit, don't ask what you're losing. Ask who you're letting down. Because when someone matters to you, you'll find a way to keep going. Purpose turns struggle into significance. It makes the hard days meaningful. It makes failure bearable. It gives weight to your wins and grace to your losses. And it makes every step, no matter how small, part of something bigger. Don't perform, contribute. Don't chase status, create change. Don't wait for applause. Ask, who am I helping? Because when your work becomes an offering, your life becomes a statement, one that echoes far beyond the spotlight. We live in a world obsessed with perfection. We're surrounded by highlight reel images, curated lives, achievements that appear effortless. It's easy to believe that success is the result of one massive moment, one life-altering breakthrough, one perfect performance. But that belief is a lie. It's a mirage that distracts us from the truth. The truth is that progress real, lasting progress is made in the ordinary, quiet moments that no one applauds. It's not perfection that transforms us. It's the courage to keep going. Even when things are messy, uncertain, or slow, we've been taught to chase perfection like it's the prize. But perfection is not the goal. It's a trap. It convinces us to wait until we're ready, until things feel just right. It whispers that we're not enough yet, that we need to be more, do more, accomplish more before we can feel proud. And so we wait, we hold back. We don't take the leap. We delay writing the book, starting the business, having the hard conversation, or making the change. Not because we lack ambition, but because we fear falling short. But here's the beautiful truth. Success doesn't come from waiting to be perfect. It comes from moving while imperfect, from trying, failing, learning, and then trying again. It's in those unglamorous reps, those daily decisions, those quiet moments where you choose to show up when no one's watching. That's where trust is built. And trust, not perfection, is the foundation of confidence. Confidence isn't loud. It doesn't need to shout. It's quiet, sturdy, and grounded. And it's born from a simple, consistent rhythm, doing what you said you would do, not for applause, not for approval, just because you said you would. That's what builds integrity. That's what creates alignment between who you say you are and what you actually do. Every night, before the day ends, take 5 minutes. Sit with yourself and reflect. Write down one thing you did well today. Don't dismiss it because it felt small. Maybe you made your bed. Maybe you spoke up when it was uncomfortable. Maybe you got out of bed even though your anxiety told you not to. That counts. That matters. Celebrate it. Let yourself feel proud. You don't need to wait for a big achievement to give yourself credit. The small wins are the building blocks of greatness. Then write one lesson you learned. Life teaches constantly if we're paying attention. Even our worst days have something to give us. Maybe you learned that you're stronger than you thought. Maybe you learned that rushing leads to mistakes. Maybe you realized you've been too hard on yourself. Don't just move through the day. Mine it for wisdom. Let it shape you. Growth isn't always about doing more. Sometimes it's about understanding better. And finally, write down one promise you kept to yourself. One thing, big or small, that you said you'd do and followed through on. Maybe it was drinking more water. Maybe it was sending that email. Maybe it was not checking your phone before breakfast. The size doesn't matter. The act of keeping your word does. Because every time you follow through, you send a message to your subconscious. I can rely on me. That's where self-trust is born. And when you trust yourself, the fear of failure loses its power because you stop measuring your worth by outcomes and start measuring it by your alignment with your values. You stop being paralyzed by uncertainty and start embracing it as part of the process. You stop seeing failure as a verdict and start seeing it as feedback. You become someone who doesn't need to know every step in advance because you've built the inner muscle to handle whatever comes. We spend so much of our lives trying to prove ourselves to parents, to bosses, to strangers on the internet. But the person you most need to prove yourself to is you, not to boost your ego, but to build a foundation. Because when the world gets loud and life gets messy, it's your own voice you'll need to trust, and that voice is shaped by what you do daily, by the choices you make when no one's looking. This is not a practice of vanity. It's a practice of accountability. It's a daily act of saying, I matter, my effort matters, my integrity matters. When you live that way, confidence stops being something you perform and becomes something you embody. You stop chasing certainty and start chasing growth. You stop needing permission and start leading your own life. And here's what's magical. Over time, those daily reflections, those tiny acts of awareness and courage compound. One day, you'll look back and realize you've built something extraordinary. Not because you did everything perfectly, but because you never stopped paying attention. You never stopped showing up. You never stopped choosing progress over perfection. So, don't wait until it feels like enough. Don't wait until you've arrived. Every moment is a chance to take one step, and each step builds something stronger than perfection ever could. Trust, grit, character, and confidence. The kind that can't be shaken, the kind that doesn't need approval, the kind that carries you through failure and lifts you in success. Keep track of the steps, celebrate the wins, learn from the losses, keep your promises, and trust that every small choice matters, because it does. It all adds up, not to perfection, but to purpose. You don't need to be louder to be more confident. You don't need to be perfect to be more successful. You just need to decide today, and again tomorrow, that you are a work in progress, and every day you lay another brick. Conclusion: 10 small improvements, 5 powerful shifts, 1 unstoppable you. Now go take today and make it the foundation of the person you're becoming.